We'd like to ask you about your experience in South Africa and how important the role of civil society is in social development. We're interested in that relationship between the two. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience and your opinion?
Well, I think one of the things about South Africa is that there is a very vibrant civil society, and it takes many forms. So it might be religious organizations, or a civil society based on worker groups, community-based organizations. So there are many, many different types. Very strong unions, for example, that define themselves as part of civil society, while they actually are extremely well organized and well established, but they would still attach to what they would define as being part of civil society. We also, more recently, because of the emergence of the Bill of Rights in the new democracy, have a number of civil society organizations emerging that are rights-based and that really agitate for government to enact legislation or provide resources for people to enjoy the rights that are provided within the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of South Africa. So it's a very vibrant area in education. There are youth organizations that are fighting to ensure that the rights promised with respect to education are realized and that don't end at the provision of a school. But actually look at whether there are teachers, whether material is being provided, and that have consistent campaigns to make public some of the inadequacies that continue to exist with respect to provision of education in South Africa.
So, coming from a country that was technically less than a decade, technically less than just a few decades ago, was in an apartheid state. Complete segregation. Some developments were made, but the official, desegregation had happened. Do you feel, how would you evaluate where South Africa has come now, the point at which it is now? How do you evaluate this movement over the past 18 years?
I think one of the things I've certainly learned is that we underestimated the impact of apartheid. I think we didn't have a full sense of what oppression does to a people. And really, to some degree, we may have thought that once you have civil rights, once you elect your own government, everything is resolved. But the socio-economic impact of the denial of opportunity has been absolutely terrible and continues to bedevil our nation even today. I believe South Africa has made a great deal of progress in many areas. But we are still reckoning today, after 18 years, with the impact of our history of colonialism and apartheid. Because it wasn't just apartheid, there's the whole colonial history that is part of this package we've inherited. In the domain of political rights, we've made progress, the civil rights domain. With respect to socio-economic rights, health, access to water, human settlements, education, there is progress being made. It's incremental, but it's there. You can see it. When we write reports and we evaluate ourselves, you can actually measure whether there is progress. Where I think we are lagging behind is economic development and economic empowerment of the marginalized and the poorest in our country. Unemployment is a huge issue, especially youth unemployment. And I think that the society or elements within it have really imposed the obligation of attending to development on the government and haven't seen themselves as a part, especially the rich class in our society. And we are continuing to try and call for partnerships to seek to strengthen collaboration, but we also believe we must change the structure of the economic actors in our country and institutions and empower especially black people through developing a small and medium-sized business opportunity, through changing the nature of the economy, through becoming less reliant on commodity extraction and really look at value addition, new products, and really investing in science and technology to create the knowledge economy base.
And what role do you think education plays, in your opinion, in this economic development? In this economic development that you have implied as, one of the perhaps, if it does get fixed, or if there are solutions to it that can empower the people, the entire society can go at a much higher level. So what role do you think education plays in that?
Absolutely critical role, because education should help to provide young people with the skills to be problem solvers, to have initiative, to be entrepreneurs. So they've got to think differently. The notion that the public sector will absorb all young graduates is a wrong one. And the belief we sometimes give young people that we are training you to become employed is also wrong. So increasingly, we're trying to say to young people, we want you to be job creators. We want you to start businesses. These new technologies are an opportunity for you. So, look at mobile technology, see what form of applications you want to create and so on. And I think critical to our success is also in having more and more young people pursuing postgraduate studies, especially in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Because if we want to create a knowledge economy, we need young people skilled in those disciplines.
Okay, Excellency Ms. Naledi, the title of our summit is Collaborating for Change. We are from different countries, we have different organizations of administration. I was very excited when I noticed you're the Minister of Science and Technology. In my country, we don't have the Ministry of Science and Technology, so I'd just like to know the role of that ministry in your country.
Well, I'm the former Minister of Science and Technology. I've just recently been appointed Minister of Home Affairs in South Africa. But I have had the exciting opportunity to work in what I believe is a critical field for Africa. Our role is to promote the development of science and technology within South Africa, to ensure we have the human capital that is competent in the sciences and in technology, but also to promote innovation in our country, because we are far too much the consumer of products from other countries, and we don't produce our own products ourselves, nor do we modify technology to suit our own context. So my department was responsible for institutions that promote innovation, that support innovators, and that invest in those who have the creative ability to produce new products, who are doing research that might lead to innovative outcomes. So it's a very important department in promoting the notion which many of us in Africa have now bought into, of ensuring that we enter the knowledge economy and prepare young people through training them in our universities and our science councils, so that they are the masters and PhDs of the future and can become the innovators that Africa needs.
Okay, from what you're just saying, you guys are just you're trying to provide quality education to South Africans. I'd just like to know your indicators of maybe quality education.
Well, we try and use international indicators. So, for example, we would look at the World Economic Forum Competitiveness Index, and we'd measure ourselves both in terms of innovation, but as well as qualification rates in particular disciplines, issues of access to education, numbers in higher education, because that is an important indicator. We're trying to arrive at 20% of the age cohort 18 to 24 being in full-time equivalent study in higher education by 2020. So we're trying to up the participation rate of young people in higher education, because it's a very important human development indicator. Then we look at matters such as publications, because research is very important, and we also look at the degree to which the research we do actually is recognized in international terms by our peers, and becomes research that is regarded as significant in the world research community. Finally, one of the things we decided to do as South Africa was to utilize what we called our geographic advantage, where as a country we have very, very large mineral resources, for example in platinum. So as we invested in science and technology, we began to ask the question, what is the strategic advantage provided by this wealth of platinum? And one of the areas is new energy sources. So we invested in hydrogen fuel cells development as a system, and got international collaborators to work with us in order to see whether we can develop a hydrogen fuel cells industry, because platinum is a catalyst, and we were sending out platinum to others to develop fuel cells, but not developing such an industry ourselves. Another area is we have large parts of our country that are absolutely radio interference free, and which are perfect for astronomy sciences. So we decided to invest in astronomy sciences in order to utilize this geographic advantage. And we bid along with several other African countries, including Ghana in West Africa as one of our partners, to become the host of the largest radio telescope for astronomy research in the world. It's called the Square Kilometre Array. Mm-hmm. And just this year, after several years of this process, in May this year, on Africa Day actually, it was announced that we had won the right to host the majority part of that Square Kilometre Array. So our partner countries are Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, Mauritius, Madagascar, Ghana, and Kenya. So they will have some of these satellite dishes located in their countries, but the bulk will be in South Africa. And for the first time, because of our geographic advantage, Africa will host a global scientific infrastructure, which we've not done before. So this is what we mean by utilizing the geographic advantage for strategic initiatives that we believe will develop our country. As part of this, we've also provided scholarships to support young people to study in fields that are relevant to astronomy sciences. So mathematics, physics, astrophysics, engineering, because you need engineers. We also are training young people as technicians, and they come from all over the world. I've even met a master's student from Cameroon, from Rwanda, from Mozambique, and these young people are actually going back to their countries in order to create new mathematics or physics departments and work within them in order to then produce the next generation of young people who will feed into this massive project, which we will need high-level skills for.
And we tutor children who are in grade 6 in mathematics and in English. And what surprises us most of the time is when you're doing English is that the level of literacy is actually very, very poor. And it's a reason for concern for us, because if I had to look back And you know, the reason for concern is first because it's in an urban area, so we assume that there's access to information, but yet there's still this gap between children who can absolutely do not know how to read and who are finding it hard. And we are wondering whether the government in South Africa gives an adequate support to foundational learning, especially in primary education, because that is very key. Because when in that stage, they have the impetus, they have the drive to learn, but they're constantly frustrated because they don't know how to read. And on the other scale, we find at the African Leadership Academy, which admits the top in Africa, and we have South African students who do very, very well, and some who also do struggle. And it is said that the system in South Africa is not at par with the other systems in Africa. How do you think the government of South Africa can actually work to improve the levels of education and, you know, give a strong foundation to students who are deserving and who would otherwise know how to read and write? It's you know, strong systems were put in place to actually help them achieve that.
Well, the biggest challenge facing South Africa is education, because as you would know, one of the things that was done under apartheid was to deny black people education. And they were given a low-class education that was called Bantu education, with the intention of policymakers at that time, who publicly made these statements, that blacks will never occupy any positions of significance in South Africa or the world. And so we are dealing with the results of that policy. Now, the way we've handled it is, one, we've made education a right in the Constitution of South Africa. Secondly, the largest budget allocation in our national budget is toward education. But we've recognized that quality is the biggest problem that we have to address. The statistics you mentioned of primary school children who, after 3 or 4 years of schooling, cannot read or count properly is a big challenge that South Africa is addressing. We have implemented a system of evaluation and testing where we now have national tests from grade 3 and then tests at grade 6, which are again evaluated by independent evaluators, and tests at grade 9. But they're annual national assessments. It's called ANA, Annual National Assessment Tests, in literacy, in numeracy, as well as in basic science, in order to support both teachers as well as children to achieve the standard that is required at that grade level. We're also teaching, improving on teacher development. We're working with teachers on the teacher development program, because the fact that children cannot read or write means the teachers are not teaching this successfully. So we have a national foundation program, a curriculum called Foundations for Learning, which provides materials to schools, has a teacher development aspect, the assessments I have referred to. So all of this is dedicated toward improving the quality of what happens at the primary school level, but throughout the system, because the phenomenon of quality and inadequacy occurs right through the system. And even in some of our higher education institutions, we actually need to address quality. So we're fully alert to these issues and are attempting to address them. But it's important to point out that the Sunspread community you referred to is made up of the most marginalized in our country, who come from rural areas and who would come from the poorest parts of the country. So, you know, South Africa is often spoken of as a country with two worlds, one very, very disadvantaged and another one extremely advantaged. And you can see that even among some of the black elite, that they do very, very well. But there's this large pool that is very poor, that doesn't have all the facilities we would like them to have. But that certainly is the subject of investment by government.
Well, I'm really glad that the South African government is looking forward to improving the level of education in South Africa.